Last weekend was kind of busy for me. Of course, I'm hard at work at my next book. I'm making videos. I'm playing Pikmin 4. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm doing things. I'm living my life. I'm not really paying attention to like what's in right now, right? So I was only vaguely aware that the Barbie movie even existed, right? Like, I didn't go to see it. I don't know anybody who went to see it. I wouldn't want to know anybody who went to go see it. Like, the fact that this movie exists is laughable to me. And of course, I'm the sort of person who laughs at like DC and Marvel stuff and Transformers and stuff like that. Like all this branded like toy commercial crap. Like I hate it, right? Like this stuff was done better with Toy Story, right? There's your better Barbie movie right there, right? Go watch Toy Story 3, right? Now, I can guarantee you right now that that's better than like the actual Barbie movie they produced, right? Like I don't need to know anything about it. I don't need to see it. I don't need to think about it. I don't need to like do a deep dive on like the propaganda of what the film is. I don't need to do like any of that. Like I am denouncing the Barbie movie because a better version already exists. Go watch Toy Story 3. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. But the thing that kind of in hindsight kind of bothers me about this weekend is the big marketing push for the Barbie movie, because there was this really big push to push Barbie and Oppenheimer, Barbieheimer, right? People were like, making these weird viral tweets like, "Oh, I'm Barbieheimer, he," and it comes off as fake, right? It comes off as like a viral marketing stunt, where like, kind of like how Cyberpunk 2077 was pushed to the masses. Like it kind of has that same vibe. Like what overlap does Barbie and Oppenheimer have at all? Basically, it was just a cheap marketing stunt to try to get people to talk about the Barbie movie, right? Oh, I'm gonna go see Barbie and then I'm gonna see Oppenheimer. It was stupid, and it really makes me wonder just like who is dumb enough to fall for these kind of propaganda campaigns to begin with. Like these marketing stunts are just like insane, right? It's just stupid. Like I don't know what people were expecting with this. Like I don't know like how anybody could have like been excited about seeing a Barbie movie. Like it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, the thing about this though, the thing that really gets my go, and I acknowledge this in a community post, but I do think that this needs to be addressed, is that like right now the industry is claiming that Barbie is like the biggest movie so far this year, when we know that isn't true. Like if you don't know how this is arranged, basically there are like multiple different like lists of like movies in different categories. So like multiple movies can be like the number one movie in America at once, right? It's kind of like how the New York Times bestseller list isn't actually like a bestseller list. So right now, like Barbie has this like the biggest opening weekend ever until like the next big opening weekend thing, right? Like again, there's a reason why every movie that comes out is like the biggest thing ever, right? They deliberately set it up this way. But the thing that I noticed is that like it was in no way bigger than the Super Mario Bros. Movie, right? Barbie is not going to have the same kind of legs. It's not going to have the same kind of lasting appeal. Once word gets out that it is propaganda, and I think that's already happening to a certain extent, like the numbers are going to drop and it's going to be completely forgotten. It is essentially going to be the next Last of Us. Like it's hard to believe The Last of Us actually came out this year. I think, was it this year? It feels like it's a long time ago since I was talking about that regularly, but like it does have that same kind of energy to it, where like people hype this show up. It's presented as like the biggest thing ever in its genre on this subscription service, like on this platform in the world, and then like a couple of weeks later, it's like completely forgotten about, right? Right. I actually just subscribed to HBO Max, and Max, the Prime channel, which I think is like rebranded from HBO Max. But like anyway, like I saw The Last of Us on there, and like it was on like the recommended list, but it was behind like it was they had a top 10 list. And like I noticed it was behind like a lot of other shows, and like Coraline, which I know is like a movie that's over 15 years old at this point. So there's no way this show has any legs. Like the IP is basically dead in the water. Like The Last of Us Part 2 is going to be a flop, and like they're gonna make a third game, basically gonna kill the company, right? So yeah, anyway, I've talked about this before, but Barbie really seems like it's cut from the same cloth, right? It really does feel like it has that same kind of like fake industry push behind it, where like it's presented as being like this really deep, insightful like commentary on like the nature of women and you know like ooh, their place in society and how they view themselves because of like the patriarchy and or whatever. Like that's the impression I get by like seeing like the what I the commentary, the what the critics are saying. It's like basically the opposite of what they did with the Super Mario Bros. Movie, where these same people just trashed this great film because it didn't support their agenda at all. Right? Like, I do think this is like something that really needs to be talked about more is that the industry isn't necessarily reviewing things based on quality. They are reviewing things based on how much like they push the message, push the narrative, push the agenda, push propaganda, right? And like most Western shows, I would say like every single one of them like pushes the message to some degree, to some extent, in like some way, shape, or form. But like the Mario Bros. Movie, I'd say like a lot of Japanese media actually is completely free of all of them. Japanese media is not nearly as corrupt as Western media, and because the Super Mario Bros. Nintendo is a Japanese brand, because like Super Mario Bros. Is such a big worldwide thing, like we run a very real risk of Nintendo like eclipsing woke companies like Disney and their direct competitors in the animation sphere. Like the Mario Bros. Movie is a big threat to like big propaganda, specifically that aimed at kids, right? Things like aimed at younger audiences. Like it's very possible that like the Super Mario Bros. Movie alone might have set back the agenda by like several years, just because like oh man, a movie where a hero goes out and like oh man, like has cool adventures. Like you know that's all really you anybody really expects from a movie. That's all anybody wants, and more than often than not, we don't get that from like modern animation studios, and Nintendo delivered that in spades. And you know, when I compare that to like what The Last of Us does, when I compare that to like what Barbie is doing, it just comes off as like completely laughable. It just comes off as like you know so transparent what they're trying to do, and more people really need to address that there is a real problem with wokeness in media. People need to stop like acting as if things like Barbie are something to be excited about or things to look forward to seeing, because it is the same thing we've been getting for years.